Please now use the right hand feature if you wish to offer any discussion about the agenda. Archbishop Lawler. Agenda. Thank you. Archbishop Gerard, you want to speak?
I'm sorry, no, I don't. Thank you.
Unmute yourself. You need to unmute yourself.
How do I get off of this now?
I'd like to speak in favor of Archbishop Brzezinski's motion. To me, these are two...
Recording in progress.
As you can see, the USCCB's virtual June meeting was not without a few snafus, which could be an allegory for the entire meeting. Joining me with analysis is editor of Catholic World News, author of the new book, Contagious Faith, Why the Church Must Spread Hope, Not Fear in a Pandemic, Phil Lawler. Phil, thanks for being here. What did you make of the bishops' debate about whether or not to move forward with a doctrine committee, allow the doctrine committee to move forward with drafting a statement on the meaning of the Eucharist in the life of the Church?
It's really remarkable that there's even a debate about whether to have a debate about this crucially important issue. If you think about nearly a decade ago, there was to have been a policy set on this issue. The policy was thwarted by Theodore McCarrick, who gave the U.S. bishops an inaccurate version of instructions that came from then Cardinal Ratzinger. And since that time, we've still been talking about this. Everybody's been talking about it without a resolution. This seems to me a very modest effort to go forward with a teaching document that emphasizes the sacredness of the Holy Eucharist and emphasizes that people shouldn't be approaching the altar when they're in a manifest state of grave sin.
There was the contention from Bishop McElroy of San Diego that all of this puts the bishops in a partisan position. Listen.
Finally, the endorsement by our conference of exclusion from the Eucharist for public officials who support abortion, carried out in the haste which we are witnessing, will strengthen those in the church and in society who injuriously claim that the conference has adopted a tacit partisan alignment that undermines its independence and the prophetic commitment vital to the proclamation of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Your reaction?
Well, I don't think that that's at all accurate for several reasons. First of all, if the bishops had wanted to make a partisan statement, they would have made it in an election year. They're making it now after the election when nobody can realistically say they're trying to influence votes. Secondly, there are different issues, public issues, that raise themselves to a level where the Catholic Church can no longer ignore it. It's easy to say that everyone is a sinner. And I acknowledge I'm a sinner, but I don't call press conferences to advertise my sins. I don't accept awards for my sins. And I think that the blatant use of the Catholic Church by Catholic politicians calls out for some sort of remedial response from the hierarchy.
Yeah. Well, why do they need a document at all, Phil? As Bishop Joseph Tyson of Yakima pointed out on Wednesday, there's already a document from 2006 that addresses the Eucharist and who may receive Holy Communion.
And there's a document called the Code of Canon Law that makes very clear that someone in a state of manifest grave sin is not eligible to receive Holy Communion. They don't need a document, and I have to say, as much as I would welcome this document as a step forward, a document is not going to solve the problem. What we need is some enforcement of the existing Code of Canon Law and some action from the bishops. I mean, one of the things that several bishops have said in this debate is, well, we should be having private conversations with these politicians who flout the church's teaching on the dignity of life. Well, if you haven't had a private conversation with a politician in your diocese yet, shame on you.
No, you've had 20 years, or 25 years. It's astounding to me. What we need are apostles right now. And it seems to me, if you read between the lines, these bishops just want to say, some of them, just want to be able to point to a document and say, oh, look, we're doing something about this situation. But by the time this document finishes up, Biden's going to be wrapping up his second term, Phil. So there'll be no conflict, no bad press, which a number of the bishops said they were very concerned about.
Yes, they were. And you're absolutely right, because I think that the defense against this document, the people playing defense to prevent this document, they were clearly trying the filibuster tactic, just kick this can down the road a little bit further. We've gone for 20 years. Can we make it 25? And you're right. It is time for some bishops to step up. And that's why I'm encouraged by this effort, because more bishops are more adamant that we've got to do something. And one last thing I want to just put in here is no diocesan bishop needs approval from the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops to take action. Any diocesan bishop can take action by himself on his own authority.
Yeah. And well, I'm in New Orleans, and Archbishop Rummel here distinguished himself, and it's the only case you can point to where you had Catholics in the public sphere excommunicated because there were certain officials who refused to segregate or integrate the schools here in
Right.
the New Orleans area. Archbishop Rummel excommunicated those people to put them on notice. It wasn't a weaponized thing. It wasn't to hurt people. It was to warn them that their mortal soul was endangered. And you get the feeling now that that's not a concern anymore.
That is the point. This is not a political issue for bishops, or at least it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be viewed as a political issue. It's a teaching issue, and it's a pastoral issue. It's an issue of charity, because if you really care about the people in your diocese, you want to save their souls, and their souls are in peril.
You also get the feeling, and again, I'm spitballing here, Phil, just having watched this debate at length over the last couple of days and certainly today. You get the feeling that some of these bishops, and I'm not talking about Cordileone or Naumann, who I think on a matter of principle want this document, but some of the others, you feel they're being pressured by donors or parishioners to respond in some way to this public scandal, and they'll be able to say, oh, look, well, the bishops are considering it. So it becomes almost a buffer for them to do nothing.
It does, and that's why I say I, for one, can't be satisfied with just one more document. I imagine some document will eventually come out, and I imagine it will be better than nothing. I hope it will be good. I mean, Archbishop Cordileone's pastoral letter on this subject was excellent. But again, It's a document, it's a statement, and we need more than that at this point.
Yeah, no, the action for the sake of clarity, just so the people realize what's at stake. And again, musing about the wonders and glories of the Eucharist, that's fantastic, and you have to teach it, but you also have to show the respect and the sacrality of that sacrament in everyday life. And when you disconnect those two ideas, the lived experience as opposed to the stated one, you get the chaos we have today. After 23 years in the Archdiocese of Dijon, in eastern France, the priests of the Fraternity of St. Peter will be dismissed at the end of the summer. Following a decision by the Archbishop there, the community will leave the Basilica in September. The extraordinary form of the Roman Rite offered every day by those FSSP priests will henceforth be celebrated by diocesan clergy. Now, the superior of the fraternity says the order asked for a meeting with the Archbishop to discuss this decision, but it wasn't granted. He claims the Archbishop has said the reason for expelling them was that the priests of the order didn't concelebrate Mass. Phil, your reaction, I mean, Canon 902 of the Code of Canon Law provides that no one can be forced to concelebrate.
No, again, we have something that pops up so frequently that the Code of Canon Law is not enforced equally. These priests have the right under the code to refrain from concelebration, and the bishop is calling them on that. Now, the bishop has the right to do this, but my gosh, there are all sorts of priests, all sorts of orders that cause problems in all sorts of dioceses, and this is an extraordinarily strong and disciplinary reaction that doesn't seem to make sense. It's totally disproportional.
I wanted to get to your latest book, Contagious Faith, Why the Church Must Spread Hope, Not Fear in a Pandemic. You write about the effects on society when church leaders tell people not to attend Sunday Mass and confession, etc. What are the most devastating impacts on the laity of the year of closed churches and the restricted masses and funerals and weddings?
Well, I mean, the most devastating impact was that we were locked out of our own churches in a time of crisis, and at a time when many people were, rightly or wrongly, worried that they were in danger of death. And at that time, the job of the church is to give people spiritual sustenance. And what we saw instead was an example of what I call the health first heresy, the idea that your physical health is more important than your spiritual health. So to me, it was just devastating when I found that I could not attend Mass, that churches were closed to me, that the one thing, the number one job of any pastor is to provide us with the sacraments, and they failed in that response at a crucial time. That, in turn, lost an opportunity to show the Catholic Church as a sign of hope at a time when everyone, or nearly everyone, was dominated instead by fear.
Phil, the Archdiocese of Chicago is allowing people to go to Mass without a mask if they can prove they've been vaccinated. Your reaction to that development?
That's entirely inappropriate. Here we have the church acting as a public health official. The church has no expertise on public health. The bishop, the archbishop, the cardinal in this case, has no expertise as a public health official. We should be treated like adults. And isn't it odd that you have to prove that you're vaccinated, but you don't have to prove that you're pro-life?
Wow, great point. Great point. No, it brought to mind an archbishop I saw this week praising the immigration policy of the current administration. I was just down at the border. Let me tell you, there is mayhem, human trafficking, fentanyl, 300% increase in the seizure of fentanyl. You can praise a lot of things. They shouldn't try to be immigration policy experts. I think it makes them look really bad. Phil Lawler, we will leave it there. Contagious Faith, Why the Church Must Spread Hope, Not Fear in a Pandemic by Philip Lawler is available now at bookstores everywhere and online. You can read his commentary at catholicculture.org. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.